From the beginning, Star Wars has been political. You may not want to hear it, but it's not what you think it means. It's especially not what Daisy Ridley, George Nolfi, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy think it means. Because even though Star Wars was written with politics in mind, it's not truly the heart of Star Wars. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the channel today. My name is Jeremy, and this is The Force Fandom, a channel for regular fans who love Star Wars. And today, we're gonna get a little political. No, it's not what you think, but in a recent interview that Daisy Ridley had, she talked about Star Wars, and she said this: "I feel like the Star Wars films are all political. I feel like it's the individual versus the big corporation or the big group. So I think they always have been. And ultimately, I think the films are emotional in that it's good and evil, which we all can relate to very specifically in our day-to-day lives. But yes, I do feel those conversations are woven within the story, and I'm very excited to see what George does." We're going to talk about what Daisy Ridley has said there, because I think there are some things she gets right, but also some things that she's missing. And from the very beginning, Star Wars has been political, or at least had politics in mind, a social commentary of sorts. When George Lucas was asked by James Cameron about this very thing, here's what he said.
You did something very interesting with Star Wars, if you think about it. The good guys are the rebels. They're using asymmetric warfare against a highly organized empire. I think we call those guys terrorists today. We call them Mujahideen, we call them Al-Qaeda.
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly.
Or a colonial, we're fighting the largest empire in the world.
Right.
And we're just a bunch of hayseeds in coonskin hats that don't know nothing.
That's right.
And it was the same thing with the Vietnamese.
Yep.
The irony of that one is in both of those, the little guys won.
Right.
And the big, highly technical empire,
the English Empire, right?
The English
British
Empire, the American Empire, lost.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
So with the backdrop of the Vietnam War, some of the things, the storylines of Star Wars were written. Now, put aside for the fact that I think George Lucas is not a very good historian, because I think the way he characterizes what happened in the Vietnam War not to be very historically accurate. But needless to say, you can't deny that that's some of the motivations behind what he's writing when he came to Star Wars. He wrote these things in, or at least they were the context and the backdrop for what was happening in a galaxy far, far away. Now, at first glance, this statement that's saying the Star Wars films are all political seems true, seems right, seems correct. However, there's a major flaw with that line and that line of thinking. Let me explain. You see, when some people say that Star Wars is political, all of it, here's what I really think they're actually saying. They see Star Wars as their own political platform, a place for them to work out their own political beliefs and thoughts in the Star Wars universe, in such a way to stick it to the people that disagree with what they believe to be right and good and true. So basically, let me use Star Wars as a platform to communicate my own personal political beliefs, and those that disagree with me, well, they can have a big middle finger. Gee, let's ask Leslie Headland how that works when you use Star Wars for your own political belief system and platform instead of staying true to the core heart of what Star Wars truly is. It doesn't work. People see right through it. Star Wars having political foundations, or being political as we're talking about, doesn't mean you get to needlessly and endlessly push your agenda into the forefront and to use the platform of Star Wars for that purpose, and seemingly that purpose alone. At the end of the day, Star Wars being political in nature is really a social commentary, but that's the context of the galaxy far, far away, not all of the substance, not everything that it is. And the problem with modern day Star Wars is they are terrible at nuance. They are terrible at actually telling a story with something underneath it as maybe some of the context and foundation. All they want to do is to make sure you get the point that you're wrong and they're right. And as long as you get that point, then we're successful. Everything else be damned. This is how people felt when looking at the sequel trilogy, feeling like this Mary Sue character was forced upon us because, it's time that Star Wars got rid of patriarchy.
These guys don't want to know why. They don't want to know why they like this Luke Skywalker instead of this Luke Skywalker. They'll give you reasons. They'll say that Rian Johnson ruined Luke Skywalker, whatever that means. They don't want a story that holds the mirror up to them and says, no, the Jedi are actually the problem. The white, straight men and the patriarchal systems that control the world are actually the problem.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Or when we look at what we see in The Acolyte, the ways that things were presented to say, again, patriarchy bad. We're hearing things like Disney doesn't want to hire white males to do anything. And so all of this is under this agenda. And then the fans are getting accused of being racist for not liking the thing that was made for them to not like. It's absolutely insane. And so when we put all of this together, when you just say a statement like Star Wars, it's all political, you're sending off alarm bells in people's head going, we've seen this before, we've heard this before, and we're being told that we have to believe a certain way to be part of the Star Wars universe. Guess what? George wrote a story and made a set of 6 films that were loved by people on all kinds of political spectrums. Even people that would have been against George's political takes enjoy Star Wars. Why? Because it's not just about the politics. The true heart of Star Wars is so much more. And for an example, let me talk about one of my favorite things in the Star Wars universe lately. It's Andor. I think the way that Andor is written and presented and put before us is also a social commentary with the context of all kinds of things going on that are somewhat political in nature, but it's taking a back seat. It's the context. It's the background. It might even be some of the foundation, but it's not so in your face and on the nose that it is something you're just going to spit out like taking a bite of a Brussels sprout. You immediately know, no, my body does not want this. My body hates this. This is disgusting. I don't want to eat this. And that's why they put bacon on Brussels sprouts, because that's the only way you're going to be tricked into eating your Brussels sprouts, is when they're all mixed together, cooked in bacon grease, covered with bits of bacon, and I bite into it and I go, I don't know that I love this, but I'm going to keep eating it, and I'm going to keep eating it, and I'm going to keep eating it. That's the difference. I don't know if that actually connects or if that makes any sense, but that's how I think about it. I may not agree with all of the political stances that some of the creators, George Lucas in particular, even have. But the way that it's presented as a social commentary, but in the background. Why? Because the heart of Star Wars is the characters, this hero's journey, this journey against evil, good versus evil, and how even those who are evil can be redeemed and brought to good. All of that is the heart of Star Wars. But what we get out of modern day Star Wars is just the you're bad, I'm good, believe like me, or get the F out. That's how it feels. That's what it feels like. So when someone says all of Star Wars is political, no, it's not. Even though on the face of it, you kind of feel like, hey, didn't George talk about how it was motivated? Yes, but when we're saying all things are political, that takes on a very different nature and conversation today. Because we live in a day and age of social media where political agendas are being shoved down our throat constantly. We just came off of an election where clearly Hollywood stood on one side of the fence and the American people stood on the other. And we were just constantly told again and again by celebrities and by Hollywood how we were to think and how this was going to go and how we have to do this and how we have to do that. And that's the problem with politically motivated content today. It's so on the nose. It has no nuance. It doesn't actually comment on how all different kinds of systems are broken. It's only pinpointed at one thing. It's too specific. It's not nuanced enough. And it doesn't get anyone thinking that they're wrong. Everyone puts themselves in the seat of being right. And this is why ultimately for me, The Acolyte failed. No, it wasn't about the lesbian witches or all these other things, but it was the way that it was so on the nose, the way that the Jedi were being portrayed. There was no nuance. They wanted it to be gray. They wanted us to think about the Jedi being the bad guys, but it just kept being presented in such a stark, specific way that didn't make sense for the story. But if you go to the prequels and you look how the Jedi were shown to be falling into the trap, to be getting into the bed with the Senate and missing what was going on right under their nose, yes, George was saying there are some things that happen when we don't pay attention to evil, that even the good can be corrupted. Like, these are really universal truths that also have political undertones. Instead of taking my politics and then trying to shove universal truths into them. It seems like I'm saying the same thing, but if you know what I'm talking about, you understand. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments. I would love to engage with you, even if we might disagree, politically, because that's what I love about Star Wars. Now, I'm getting a little ranty. I'm getting a little preachy. I'm sorry if that's how you feel, but I think that this is important. That I don't like that all of a sudden when I go on Twitter, people are saying like, oh, if you say that Star Wars isn't political, you're part of the problem. It's always been political. We have to have a more nuanced conversation, because just saying it's always political is missing the point. But also saying it's not political at all is missing the point. We have to have some nuance in these conversations. And that's hopefully what I've brought you to think about today, about what I see and what I hear when someone says Star Wars is all political in the modern Disney Today context. That's what I hear. You agree? Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.